We don't know who you are. We can't take knowledge. Anyway, this is the historical framework. So we're looking at these things, bro. My question to you is simple. If you add those principles that we've just talked about, first of all, if we added all those things that we just talked about, how much of the New Testament do you think would survive?
I would say if you utilize your framework,
Yeah.
probably it wouldn't pass the test that you're saying.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you on that.
So that
Assalamu alaikum. We just saw the little clip here, and I'd like to talk about that. This was I took from SC Dawa channel, and it's excellent Dawa channel. Actually, you will find tons of Dawa material, videos available for us to get benefit with that. You can subscribe to that. The important thing in this video, actually, which I like to address that the important thing in this video is that the hijab is arguing or means making argument with the Dr. Josh. Dr. Josh is a Christian brother and is a Roman Catholic and is studying on the Trinity doctrine in a differently new format. But in this discussion, actually, Hijab was asking him what's the criteria of when Christian provide some information, especially regarding the God or religion, what their authoritative text actually they have, how they verify information. So like it's very important. Our belief or faith is based on information. If information is correct, then obviously the result will be that it will lead us to the correct belief. If the information is doubtful, and then definitely that information will result in a doubtful belief. And if information is false, then obviously the conclusion will be you will be following the false belief. So it's important actually for us to learn what Hijab is making this argument with Dr. Josh, and Dr. Josh actually admitting that if we apply Islamic framework or Islamic criteria of knowledge, how you validate, how you authenticate the information, he says the New Testament will not pass that test. And this is very important that Dr. Josh admitting publicly that the Bible or the New Testament they're carrying this information, it will not going to pass the test of the Islamic criteria of how you validate, how to verify, how to know the certain information coming from God or prophet or companion of the prophet. It can be validated or give a higher level of certainty that we can accept that. So I will show the entire clip actually, which you can listen to that also and get benefit with this. So before, like I said, I also ask everybody to subscribe to this. And also Brother Hijab also has his own channel, and you can subscribe to Hijab's channel. He has over 346K subscription subscriber to his channel, and there are tons of great videos. He's a public debater and a public speaker. He's a well knowledgeable brother in all aspects of the Islamic understanding. So I would highly suggest for those who are indulge in the field dawah or dawah to non-Muslim in various area. So this is a great learning source, and everybody should subscribe to this. And let's listen to the rest of the clip, and we'll see what the rest of the argument Hijab is making in this video.
from the Islamic perspective, for something to be seen as authoritative, coming from the Prophet, yeah, or coming from the companions of the Prophet, 5 conditions have to be met. Okay, 5 conditions have to be met. Not 5 conditions in general, but 5 conditions of the person who's making the claim that it came from those individuals. So we have a lot of like hadith, right? We have a lot of hadith. In fact, probably over 1 million. Yeah, over 1 million hadith. But of the million, according to An-Nawawi, one of the great hadith scholars, only about 10,000, can you imagine that? 10,000 are seen as authentic. That's like 1% or something like that. Do you know why? Because a lot of those hadiths, a lot of those reports claimed to be from the Prophet are rejected outright. Do you know why? Because we don't know where they came from. So what I'm saying is that the way we deal with this is our evidentiary bar. It's a little bit higher than yours, in my opinion, because what we're saying is this, is that when we see a scripture or a parchment or someone makes a narration, orally narration, yeah, that the Prophet said this or this companion said that, we say that's not good enough. What you need to do is tell us your chain of narration. And in your chain of narration, the 5 following things have to be met. Number 1, the person who's narrating the hadith has to be trustworthy. In other words, they're not a criminal, they don't have a criminal record. Because if you're a criminal or you have some kind of allegiance, you're likely to fabricate a hadith in order to suit your agenda. So if you're known in the community for someone who has these kinds of biases, and especially if you're quoting the hadith on the topic which you're likely to want to have a bias in, your hadith will not be accepted. Number 1. Number 2 is that person has to be dabt, that which means that they have to have a good memory in the case of those who are already transmitting it, and or good written ability for the ones who are writing it in manuscripts. If they don't have the ability, the education to write down, then they can make mistakes in terms of writing and so on. Number 3, it has to be free from shudud, which means defects. They can't be defects, they can't be anomalous things that the Prophet ﷺ is, or the language is different, or something that doesn't befit a 7th century setting. And it has to be muttasil, which means that everybody in the chain of narration had to have met one another, been from the same place, from the same locality, and so on and so forth, and they lived with each other. That's why we're saying, and the thing, shudud wa ilal, defects, and also we said shudud, which is aberration of all the other texts. So these are the 5 principles.
Can I ask a question myself?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because
Yeah.
you know more than me. But when you, let's say, switch to the Sirah, is it Sirah, the biography of the Prophet?
Yeah.
You don't have that, do you? You have a long gap from
so
the event. So the earlier Sirah, isn't it 200 years or 300 years
so
after?
what happens with the Sirah?
Just last point. And then also, we don't even have that text. It's preserved even later on.
So the Sirah is a composite of different hadiths, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of those hadiths, not all of them, but a lot of them are seen as, because the hadiths now are classified into different types. So you have mawdu'a, which is fabricated, matruk. These are different words that we use. Da'if, which is weak. And then you have different levels of weakness. Then you have Hasan, and then Hasan li ghayrihi, and then Sahih. And then later on they said Mutawatir as well, which is the mass transmitted. These are the different categories of hadith. For us, as what constitutes as religion for us are those hadiths which are authentic, which means they have to meet the criteria.
But I'm saying, would you then?
So a lot of the Sirah.
Would you hold to the Sirah then?
Yeah. So the Sirah, a lot of it, we would see it as good as the Bible, in the sense that. Do you see, what I'm saying to you, bro, is, you know, the attitude that we have against towards the Bible is the same attitude we have towards the weak hadith, bro. Do you understand that? It's not like if we knew what Moses and Jesus said, and it had a chain of narration and so on, we would accept it.
Yeah.
But because we don't have such chain of narration, if there's a hadith that someone says has come from the Prophet, but it doesn't have those 5 criteria, and the people didn't meet each other, we would say, look, he could have said it. Do you know what the Prophet told us to say about the Bible and those people like you? He says, لا تصدقوهم ولا تكذبوهم. Don't affirm what they're saying and don't belie what they're saying. In other words, stay agnostic. Like if you're telling me there's certain things in the Bible that this is what Jesus said, I'm going to say it's possible that Jesus said it, but I can't tell you with all certainty that he did.
Yeah, but remember what I was saying, that...
Do you see the point?
Yeah, I do see the point. But my issue is that I would assume the principle of testimony. What I was saying is that if I don't have any reason to doubt that person's testimony, why should I doubt it?
So good.
So you'll assume that person to be telling you something that's true.
Yeah, so we have it more,
unless you have reason to
we
doubt
have we have scientific methods of harmonizing this process which you're talking about. We agree with that point, that sentiment is fine. But what we would say in terms of how do we come to the conclusion, there must be something more scientific. And so what we're saying is that these 5 principles, in addition to, when it comes to the Quran, you have additional things, because the Quran is even more rigorous. So with the Quran, there's other conditions that have to be met. You know, it has to be in line with certain scripts, and it has to be in line with the Arabic language, and it has to have that same chain of narration, yeah, which includes those 5 things that we talked about. With that all in mind, what we say is that we have no problem, yeah, like the Bible, when we look at it, we say because it doesn't have that, the evidentiary bar is lower for you, I understand, ours is a bit higher. What we're saying is that we can be a bit more sure, rest assured, that this is actually what the Prophet is saying.
Okay, I would disagree. I agree with you. I don't know what you said, but I would disagree with you in saying, I wouldn't say the evidentiary bar is low, I would say it's different. You would say you look for different evidence when you're trying to validate this to be a correct text. We would say that we look at actually different evidence from you as well. So it's not that they're lower, it's just that we're working on different frameworks. You're working on one framework, and you say that this is the way to look for it.
Yeah, but
and then so the argument will be which frameworks are better. That will be the argument.
My question is, when you add these categories that we've talked about, basically what we're talking about is this: if you had someone called Majhul is someone we don't know their surname, we don't know who they are, that we don't accept anything from them. This is a very important. Anonymity is a disqualifier. So, Majhul means unknown. I think it's in Eritrean as well, yeah? We have Majhul dates as well. You can, anyway, you know what I'm saying? Majhul date. Anyway, so anonymity is a disqualifier for us. So what we're saying is that if we don't know who you are, we can't take knowledge. Anyway, this is the historical framework. So we're looking at these things, bro. My question to you is simple. If you add those principles that we've just talked about, first of all, if we added all those things that we just talked about, how much of the New Testament do you think would survive?
I would say if you utilize your framework, probably it wouldn't pass the test that you're saying. Yeah. I'll agree with you in that.
So that's
So that was very interesting. Actually, the knowledge in this clip is amazing. Actually, the criteria, the Muslim or Islamic criteria of authenticating the authoritative knowledge or information from the Prophet and the companion, a very high level in terms of 5 conditions the Hijab mentioned, and also the categories of Hadith, and Christianity does not offer any of those criteria. They're based on probability, possibility, and historical record based on assumptions and the best guess at work, actually. But that's not the criteria when you're seeking the truth. And that's the reason it's very important for us to learn and convey the message. And then the average mind will understand it's very important as a key and critical information. Again, Jazakallah khair. Again, subscribe to my channel also too, because I watch all those videos of hours and hours and try my best to get some best information from them and give you the short clips so they can all learn it. And that could be a great dawah, dawah point for us to learn each other. Okay. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we'll bring you some more information.